I don't know if this is weird to talk about, but I feel like I can make this into a thing, so I'm gonna do this. Hello. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're well. At the time of recording, it is February 15th, Sunday, and by the time you see this, it'll likely be like May or something. I don't know. But I was thinking about my boss, which is a crazy way to start the video, I think. But I was thinking about my boss, and he's like a nice guy. He's a friendly guy. He's nice. Um, but it had me thinking about the idea of perspective and how important perspective is. Because from his perspective, he has, or at least the way he tells the story, I don't know. He has a shitty life. You know what I mean? But when he was describing his life to me and like what he did on a daily basis, I was just kind of like, that's sweet. Like everything you're saying to me sounds sweet. It doesn't sound pathetic. It doesn't sound lame. It sounds sweet. You know what I mean? Like it's a very complicated situation. But to me, I was just like, oh, that's nice. Like it might not be the most ideal, you know, not to put his business out there, but he's like living with his ex-wife or whatever. They have a kid together and they all live in the same house, but she also has a boyfriend. And I guess that's the awkward part, but like from the way he describes it, it seems like they're still able to function as like a happy family, and it's really sweet. You know what I mean? Even if it's not conventional, it's like, you know, they play Pokemon Go together or whatever the frick, and it's like really sweet. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's pathetic, you know? And I don't know, the reason why I bring it up, I think, is because like you never really know how somebody else would perceive your circumstance. You know what I mean? Like, you might not enjoy it. It might not be the best thing for you, but you know what I mean? Perspective. I mean, because for sure, I can talk about my situation. I can complain up and down, but I also know that objectively there are aspects of the situation that other people would love to be a part of. You know what I mean? But that's just how life goes sometimes. Sometimes we get dealt with cards that we don't necessarily want, but if we were to like appreciate them, we could really make the best of the situation. You know what I mean? But that's a personal choice. That's something you have to do for yourself, you know? Okay. What the heck? Oh, you can't see that very well, but there's, okay. What are you guys doing? What the heck? I lost my train of thought because of the cats, but I was about to say something about like, you know, a lot of people, it's a phrase that people say, but it's very true. Everybody wants what they can't have, or everybody wants what they don't have, you know? And it's really just a matter of redirecting that energy and just trying to appreciate what you do have and learning to work with that. You know what I mean? And once again, a lot of us are dealt cards that we don't fucking want. You know what I mean? And if we were to trade, it's like when you go to school and you're like, I don't like my fucking lunch. You can take my lunch and I'll take your lunch because your lunch is better and you think my lunch is better. You know what I mean? But like when you learn to appreciate it, then you realize, oh, this is my lunch because it's healthy for me, and this is, I don't know if that's the case, but you know what I mean? Like, because some people like to believe, I'm not saying that this is true, but some people like to believe that our souls chose to come here and like there are specific things that we wanted to learn and go through and experience. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily true, but a lot of people do say that, and I do think that there's a lot of truth in that. But part of that, I think, is being willing enough to surrender to the process. You know what I mean? Not being so tied to like how you want it to be, how you imagine it to be, you know? Because then like when you think about, oh, there's some kitties. When you think about any celebrity, any famous person, a lot of them were like dealt like some really fucked up cards, you know what I mean? And it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm lucky enough to like do this, or I'm lucky enough to like, no, it's like they just accepted like this is what it is and this is what I have to work with. Let's move forward. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are like, no, this is how I want it to be. This is how I imagine it to be. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how I think it should be. And then it's like, okay, but at what point are you going to accept that that's, you know, that's not the case? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I usually do these like super early or super late when nobody's around. But occasionally I run into people, whatever, because when I mentioned the cats, whoever was at that house, there were some people there, and like I heard them talking or whatever, and it threw me the fuck off. It scared the fuck out of me, and it didn't show. I kept talking, but internally I was, because I still get nervous about doing this. Like I'm like it doesn't matter. But I still get nervous about doing this sometimes, and I'm like, fuck, I feel so awkward. You know. Also, this is completely unrelated and unnecessary to say, but I think people who hold the perspective of like being bitter Bettys and like not wanting to see other people succeed, I think is so strange. You know, that crab in a bucket mentality. I think I made a video recently where I was saying like, if you ever want to have any level of success, you got to let that go. You got to be able to clap for other people. You got to be able to appreciate other people. And I can't imagine, because I've always been that type of person, but like I imagine for some people it is like a journey. It is like an uphill battle to get there, you know, especially when you've never been that way before, when you've never, you know what I mean? Perspective. My perspective is very interesting, I think. Not to toot my own horn, but I think I have a very unique perspective. And it's funny, it's interesting, I think, to think about all of the times, all of the moments where I had like really profound ideas and I didn't think to record. You know what I mean? Okay, also, I'm noticing about it, and that's so funny. That is so funny. I don't know if it's just if it's a pattern or if it's just a coincidence, but like 3 times already, as I'm walking, I notice people like, I don't think they're necessarily watching me, but I notice like it happened in succession, like right after each other, but like 3 different people at 3 different houses. Looking at, I guess once again, it's early enough for that to be happening. I guess people just kind of waking up and being like scoping out I don't know, but it makes me feel like that episode of White Bear, or what is it? I think it was White Bear from what was that show? Black Mirror. That show was crazy. And speaking of perspective, because her perspective was that everybody was like out to get her and watching her, and to some degree that was the truth, but she didn't remember that she committed a heinous crime. She didn't remember that she did something to kind of warrant it, which I think is crazy, because you wiped her memory. She doesn't even remember doing that. You know what I mean? But then they do force her to relive it. They do give her information that leads to that conclusion. You know what I mean? So I guess, I don't know. I'm kind of wanting to, like, mentally I'm going back to the beginning message of this, how I was talking about perspective and like how we have to kind of deal or like use the, oh my god, if I can fucking speak, how we have to basically use the cards that we were dealt in life. And because in between takes, that's what that's what was going on in my head, like that message. And I wish more people could embrace that. I wish more people could just accept things as they are. You know what I mean? I think there'd be a lot less chaos, a lot less destruction in the world. But then again, I guess it wouldn't be the world as we know it if that wasn't an aspect. And I don't know. Sometimes when I think about it, I think about like, you know, maybe this is supposed to be, maybe the world is supposed to be this way. Maybe there's no fixing it. Maybe the distortion, maybe the corruption is part of it. And I don't know, to some degree I don't necessarily want to believe that, but when we look at like that one spiritual idea of like Sophia and like the creation of the world from that perspective of like it being an accident and like having to come back home and all this stuff, then it's just like, okay, well maybe this is just how it is. Like maybe that's, you know, because according to Sophia, it was an accident, and then they kind of incorporated it into like the soul's learning system or whatever. This is one perspective, though, and I need to stand firm in that idea that this is one perspective. And I was looking into the idea of a spiritual manifesto. I don't think I'm capable of writing something like that, because part of what makes it that is that it's an absolute. It's very firm, and it's very like, this is how it is and this is how it should be, you know what I mean? And I like to leave room for like nuance, for like adverse thought, you know what I'm saying? And maybe that's not always useful, but you know. But anyways, I'm gonna end this here. I'm gonna say thanks for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. Hope you know whatever you're going through is temporary. Miracles happen all the time, and you should try to keep your head up, keep your spirits high, because everything's temporary. And yeah, Jesus.